Hello, this is Lorelei Rutledge at the J. Willard Marriott Library. And in this video, I want to show you how to use Atlas TI, which is a qualitative data analysis software, to assist you in doing a lit review. So first, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have my Atlas TI open and that I have several documents that I would like to review for inclusion into my literature review saved in a folder somewhere in my documents or on my desktop where it's easy to access. And just a quick note, I'm using version 8 of the Mac version of this software. So if you're using the Windows version or you're using a newer version, it might look a little different, but the concepts will be similar. So now I'm in Atlas TI, and the first thing I'm going to do is go up to Project and choose New, and title my project and go ahead and click Create. And I've already created my project, so I'm going to just click on Cancel. Then the next thing I'm going to do is go up to Documents and go ahead and import documents. And then I will select the documents from the folder on my desktop here and go ahead and import those. I've already imported mine, so I'm not going to go ahead and do it with you, but that's what you'll want to do. If you can, you'll want to include all of the documents at once because that avoids problems with Atlas TI saving the documents correctly. And once the documents are in, the way that you can check that out is go to the left pane in Atlas TI and click where it says Documents and click the arrow next to it. And that'll open a drop-down menu that should show you the title of each of your documents. So if you click into any of these and double click, you should be able to see the document. So once that's set up, before I do any more work, I'm going to go ahead and go up to Project and choose to export my project. And the reason for this is because Atlas TI tends to save the projects in kind of a strange place. So sometimes it can be good to save a copy in a folder or save it in the desktop. So you can go ahead and save and then take a minute and pause this video. Go ahead and close whatever version that you're working on and go ahead and open that saved version that's on your desktop or wherever you saved it and work from that one so it's easier to find. When you get done working for a session in Atlas TI, you'll want to go ahead and export your project again and work off that saved project. The reason that we export is there is a save option in Atlas, but that's saving the XML overlay that includes your coding and other information. It's not saving all of the documents and everything. So I recommend exporting a version of your file. That'll create a file that has the ending .altproj.altproj, and that's the file that you'll want to save on a flash drive, or if you're working off your own computer on the desktop or something like that, and reopen each time you're working in Atlas TI. So the next thing that we want to do is think a little bit about what information we're looking for in the documents that we're reviewing. So I have some sense already that I'm interested in how CACDA software, which is computer-aided qualitative data analysis software, is used in literature reviews, and especially if anyone has suggested any models for using it effectively or any plans for how it's been best used. So right away, I'm going to start thinking of some categories that I want to capture. So some of you might be familiar with coding of qualitative data, and in a lot of cases, someone who's coding in that way goes line by line, and they're usually looking at a document or a transcript or something like that, and they will write a variety of codes about what stands out to them. For us, so that we don't get overwhelmed managing our lit review, the best bet is probably going to be to think about ahead of time, what are some of the codes that we know we want to include? So in my case, I've thought a little bit about this, and I'm going to go up and click on the code menu and say show code manager and show you some of the codes that I've come up with. So I know that I want to have a code for the thesis statement in the articles I review. I usually also create a code called pull quote, and this is for quotations that I might want to include in my paper. I know specifically for this topic that I'm looking for models, so I just made a code called model. Also, I made some codes with subcodes here. So my main code is key finding. And then I made some subcodes. So if I see anything about how these kinds of tools can help with retrieving related concepts, I want to get that. If there's anything about how researchers fail to synthesize well and something like a CACDOS tool like Atlas can help them, I want to get that. If there's any conclusions, right, I might want to get that. And there may be others that are a good fit for you. So you may choose, for example, methods or methodology if that's something that you're focused on. You may want to do something like historical eras. If you're doing kind of a history type paper, you may want to have specific codes looking at theories or theoretical backgrounds of articles. So it's up to you, but I would encourage you to kind of think ahead of time about what you might be looking for so that you don't get overwhelmed with codes. So I'm going to go ahead and close my code manager. And so let's say that I just want to start with this first article here. So you'll see here on the left pane is where I can get to each of my documents. If I go into this drop down, I can see my codes here. So in the center pane is the text of the article. I'm going to go ahead and just grab this median line, which is kind of dividing these two center panes, and move it to the right so that I can read more of the article. Over here next to this main pane where the article is showing up is where you'll be able to see my coding. So let's take a look at this article. So you'll see I've already found a little bit here. This looks like a model for the type of activities and analysis that might be supported by software like this. So if I want to code something, I'm going to go ahead and select it with my cursor. And then I will go up to the Add Coding button. And if you're creating a new code, you can go ahead and just name it whatever. But if you start typing a letter, if you've already created a code, it should pop up there. So I already coded this as a model. So there's my model code, and I could add it again. I'm not going to do that, but so that's what I'm going to do is kind of go through and think about these code areas that I want to find. So this is a really great quote here. Coding and qualitative analysis involves tagging data segments according to the concepts they represent. So I might want to use that description in my paper. So I'm going to go up here and click on Add Coding. And I've already created a code called pull quote. So I'm going to choose that and click on Add. And you'll see right up here it added pull quote. So it may be tempting as you're going through this process to want to really code a lot. And I'm going to encourage you to try to think about specifically coding things that you think are going to help you in your paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and open a different article, and I'm going to go through the same process again. So this is interesting. So this is saying that it can be difficult to write literature reviews because there's not a lot of guidance. So I'm going to add coding, and I know I put in a code that said key finding, researchers fail to synthesize. So that's not exactly what this is. So I might change my mind, and instead of choosing that, I'll make a brand new code, key finding, lack of training, and add that there. So one thing that people have sometimes said is, this is kind of overwhelming for me. I have so many articles. And here's my suggestion to you, if that is the case that you are in. So then you can use kind of the tools that Donna and I have suggested in other videos, which we're happy to share with you. So you could go back through and use either Atlas or a tool like Excel and just look at, say, the abstract and conclusion and just code those and use that to kind of pick a smaller number of articles that you want to take a look at in detail. Another option I think is you could really narrow down on a specific aspect of your research question. So I could say, hey, for my first pass, I really just want to look at models. And I only want to code things that have a model about the best way to do a lit review or the best way to use qualitative data analysis software. And that's all I'm going to do. So maybe I would go to this article and say like, hey, this has this set of 6 stages that this person used to do a literature review. And I really just want to focus on that and code for that. So I might kind of skim through this as I'm doing now and see if there is kind of a simplified version that explains those 6 steps and code for that. So that's probably where I would focus if I was feeling overwhelmed. And so then once we've added some codes, we have some options here. So one of the things that I think is pretty cool that you can do in Atlas TI is I can go up to code again, and I can say, show me the code manager. And this is going to show me each of my codes. And if I click on it, so I clicked on this one that's called key finding, important literature may be unpublished, that is going to show me the quotations that I pulled or the sections that I coded and what document they're in. So this is in document number 4, this one's in document number 5. So then what I can do if I want to is I can go up to code and say output, and I can say I would like a list of codes, or I would like a list of codes by document. So this will show me which codes I used in which document. The other option, which is the one I tend to use a lot, is to go up to quotation and click on output and say, I want to see quotations by code. So this will give me a printable version of what I just showed you. It'll show me the name of my code, conclusion, and then the quotations that are in it. So then you can use this, right, to start grouping together what you want to say in your paper. And so one of the things that sometimes comes up, right, is people have too many codes and they're feeling a little overwhelmed. And I have a couple of suggestions about that. So if you go into your coding menu or coding manager, sorry, I'm going to go to code and show code manager. If you have a lot of codes, there are some things that you can do. So let's say, I created this section that's lack of training, but then I noticed kind of this problem here, which is that researchers fail to synthesize literature. That's kind of related to lack of training. So maybe I want to pull this into lack of training. So I'm going to pull these together and merge the code. And what that's going to do is take everything that was in that key finding lack of training and put it in this code. So whichever code you drag into, that's going to be the one whose name remains. And then maybe let's say, maybe I have this thesis section, but I want to pull my pull quotes into the thesis section so that it's one less code to look at. I could do that as well. And so that's kind of a way to simplify. You can merge codes if you feel like you have too much going on. So that's my quick overview of how to use Atlas TI to start writing your literature review. If you have questions about this or anything else I've talked about, feel free to get in touch with me or my colleague, Donna Ziekenfuss. Thank you so much for your time.